I was with some New York ventures before I started my own consultancy. We do a lot in the media tech space, of course, particularly in machine learning and AI for media, as well as OTT and a lot in the XR space. Yeah, really looking for what the next new thing is, and really focusing on Europe and North America mostly. But way back in the dawn of time, I was on the agency side working with big companies like Sony and Sharp and Yamaha. So CES, still does touch, those big iron companies from Asia. But yeah, this I've been going to CES on and off for 31 years. And so this show, I think, was really much more about what was real to me. Less concept designs and alpha, beta, smoke and mirrors, to be honest with you. I was very impressed that there was far less of that and more incremental innovation at scale. That's which is exciting, for all of us. So
For sure. And yeah, just like teeing up just a few things that I saw. And Chris, it'll be great to have you build on that. Michael, welcome you chiming in with your perspective. I'm going to go through this really quickly, and then I'll just have a link where you can download this directly for further review. But just to tee up a few things I put together. So one of the biggest brand and AI announcements was Volkswagen. CES, for those who follow it or don't, has always, I mean, at least for quite a while now, has been a car show and increasingly a concept car show. I mean, this seems like, to me, just more of an incremental, like, something that like 6 months ago would have sounded like a, really great thing, and now already is like, wait, like, can't like Siri and Google and everyone just do this? They got a lot of headlines for it, but I think it's on that like tail end of interest and what people will just expect from any kind of conversational media. Like, I still wonder, frankly, when my kid uses her Alexa show in her room as her kind of like alarm clock and music player. And it's like, it's amazing how dumb it is. And Amazon is obviously one of the most sophisticated AI. Like, when is Amazon just going to put its AI chops in its own devices? Um, but that's another story. I added a label for this deck, and it's the not seen at CES. And yes, DALL-E 4 created this image for me with a little bit of prompting and fine tuning to try to get it to spell things correctly. Because there were a lot of big announcements last week that had nothing to do with CES proper, but sort of took over the show. And OpenAI's GPT store was one of the bigger ones. I'm I'm not quite sold on this yet, and will be very curious if others in the room are, or like what the case is. Like, because I feel like most will just go to the front door, and if it's not the front door of ChatGPT, it'll be Copilot or something similar, and just expect it to be able to adapt to the request. But maybe there's more here than I think. AI powered robots were everywhere. I mean, a lot of these say that they're going to save you all this work. I'm not convinced of that either. To me, they seem like a lot more work to just go and manage these added devices, or it's like a smart home monitor with wheels, doesn't do all that much. I think of the Roomba as, and I've never had one, but seems to me like a much smarter device because I know what it actually does and presumably keeps my home cleaner if it works. You Not surprisingly saw AI in every booth, right? Like, so this is LG, and AI is affectionate intelligence. Now, I'm not sure how affectionate it is to monitor all the consumers going into your store and apply some facial recognition, and might be a little creepy depending on how far you take this, but also not shocking to see that. Hisense, their art TV, create your own painting to watch on like TVs as art was a very big theme this year. Um, like, why not add a Gen AI layer to it? So there's that. the AI family hub, you know, refrigerators, washer, dryers, dishwasher, like every home consumer device, like dry cleaning, like closets, things like that, like the home dry cleaning thing that all of this stuff is now AI enabled. It like the AI thing recognizes what clothes you're putting in and then adapts the spin cycle accordingly. Um, Maybe something. Samsung has actually today. What time is this happening? Their AI phone. Is anyone following this? But
Yeah, it is going on. Yeah.
any minute now. So it's like the AI powered phone. Anyone else here order the Rabbit? I did. Michael,
I did.
not Chris. I heard my father-in-law did. He was like, "Yeah, this actually." They now said 40,000 sold. I all these things I like when I order them, and I didn't bother ordering the Apple Vision, and that'll be here in a sec. But like for something like this, I order it with the idea that I'll probably return it. I'll demo it, like I'll unbox it on one of these calls when I get it, see if it's anything. Um, the Humane pin I will almost definitely return. I was just impressed that they didn't add a subscription fee to this one. It was like, so makes it a little more palatable. We discussed that. Um, Amazon Alexa, which I was saying was kind of dumb right now, but integrating Character.ai, which is by most accounts the second biggest AI company after OpenAI as far as usage goes. So there will be more AI experiences in there. Walmart, big presence this year. They were the biggest sponsor of the CES app. Adaptive retail is what they're calling AI powered retail. And so adding, you could see generated by AI right here in the top of the screen. Um, uh, any brand talking about AI, brand innovators, always has a great presence out there. And so then Pfizer CMO, AI's greatest help desk ever created. This announcement, I think, was bigger than any product that was launched at CES. Apple announced this right as CES was underway, and they took the air out of the room, as they often manage to do. So here's who here's pre-ordering that. Um, Almost done here. Oh yeah, this was maybe the dumbest thing that someone. I hope no one here is working on this, and if you did work on this or you did pre-order it, I want to hear from you too. But AI roller skates, um, that's a thing. And then let's see. And then we had oh yeah, the Gen AI backpack, so you can go and have those were a fun one to check out in Eureka Park. Um, and yes, like everything was too much AI is not great for AI. So talk amongst yourselves, and I'll send the link to that deck. I'll stop the share. But Chris, Michael, anyone who's there, so Chris, for starters, what stands out to you?
I mean, for me, it's really just looking more at what some of the bigger players in e-commerce were doing. Alibaba was there, TikTok was there. So the smart assistants that they were showing, I thought were really interesting. I thought the Walmart was kind of bold, adaptive retailing, which we used to call shoplifting years ago. Just kidding. Don't quote me on that, or do. But Rabbit the R1, it's amazing how much buzz that got, and people, were sending me messages saying, "You're at CES. Have you seen the R1?" What I thought was interesting about it was that I could see this as special purpose. This really feels like the kind of gadget that would have been sold only in Asian markets, say 5 or 10 years ago. It uses a MediaTek chip. I think, okay, great. I'd say wait and see. I just don't
Yeah.
really know. But to your point, David, and I love this overview. Yes, AI in everything in the TV. So you can see that the battle, even though TCL won the battle, brightness and all that, I think is Right. How does that device connect to everything else? But yeah, it was really, I mean, like one of the things I thought was cool, and you mentioned Amazon. Um, Amazon Recognition and whatever comes out of that have been around for a while now. But in the Alexa Fun Pavilion, there were some cool things, and many of us, particularly if you're in AI and XR, know Nani Reeves from Trip has a new app that uses the Well Said AI, which is good audio conversational AI, and I think it's kind of brilliant. So it's look, there's so much out there that can be integrated. I see these more as features as opposed to products. I was surprised that we didn't see more from brands with OpenAI. For those
Yeah.
of us, I'm sure many of us were at South by Southwest last year. I thought the best exhibition was from Shutterstock, showing what they do with OpenAI and their licensing. But maybe some of those things are behind closed doors. But I just thought that you know, to the point of open source integration or even whatever licensing, that it was happening. And I think for all of the silly things like the Moonwalkers, there were probably a dozen products that very quietly integrated whatever flavors of homegrown AI, because of course any of these manufacturers, if they have hardware, have their own wrappers for their codecs, and so we'll see more of that with their AI as well.
Mhm.
So I don't know how you felt, David, but I thought the C Space and Aria, I would have expected a much heftier showing from brands showing off AI, or maybe it's just
Yeah.
quieter. But L'Oreal had that was probably one of the things that I liked, but they always have some cool stuff, and I thought that was kind of cool. But beyond that, not as much. Yeah, I would say that some of the things that we would expect to see at a CES, that would take it beyond, would be another 2 years from now. Things like Whisper or things like that have taken years to get to market. But yeah, and I think the one big shift, and I'll just end this by saying that in AI was that you didn't see Meta there showing off AI unless it was very quietly done. The XR or what passed for the XR side in the central hall was very minimal and not a lot of AI, even in the haptic section. So as I think it was just more quietly baked into things that people will pay increments, beyond what they would have paid last year, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fascinating to see what wasn't there, right? Like, and Meta, especially like this. Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
one other thing, just to end on this, and I think you're right to say that for the last 12 years or so, CES has been called the Las Vegas International Auto Show. But again, I didn't see, things that were, and I like that you had the Volkswagen bit there. I thought Kia had some good AI. I mean, there were some interesting robotics. Helm AI had a huge presence, and and I think that what they're showing was really good, and they couched it really well. This assistive driving, the ADAS features, same from Mitsubishi. So for me, it was really, it's like, okay, let's see where you're going. What are you doing on the design side? So I think that for anybody who wants to come in and co-develop with them, that's great to the extent that that's possible. I think Kia, had showed the way forward again. But yeah, I didn't see anything that was sort of whiz bang or gimmicky from the AI side in auto, which again, I think was shows that people are going to pay for something that's a real product or feature, or something that shows real connectivity and ecosystem and not a one-off.
Yeah, yeah, and next year is going to be fascinating for this, right? Because it's like, because now everyone will have had enough time. Some of these like seven-figure investments just in their booths, right? And like, yeah, we didn't yet discuss see-through TVs, which was like probably the most talked about topic. That like,
Can you tell me what you think about that? Because I have my own ideas, but I'll be honest with you. I looked at it and said, "Nice that you did it," and why?
Did you
well,
see did you see Samsung's implementation of the see-through TV?
I did, yeah, yeah.
what do
That
you think,
was
Michael?
it was the most innovative use of the see-through TV, because they actually layered a see-through TV, what looked like it was in front of a regular LED TV, so that for a sports broadcast, you got an AR kind of overlay over a game. And so it was almost like you were looking through a window. You had that parallax effect of being able to see a background and a foreground. And it was pretty cool. Like, things would pop up after a goal, and you would see that, like, imagine regular broadcast game graphics, and then in the background you would see the gameplay. So I thought it was a bit innovative. I still don't quite get the point of a see-through television. I like the Samsung frame. I think the frame is awesome as is for displaying art in the house and kind of having a TV blend into the background. So I was hoping to see some improvements on that, and I didn't see that at their booth at all.
Do you remember Video Window, the Dutch company? So they do that mostly for industrial installations, like at an airport, like
Yeah.
Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, or a restaurant. And I think that that's probably where Samsung's going with that. I did like the implementation, but I still felt I missed the kind of whiffed a little.
Did you see? I was hoping to see some auto stereoscopic lenticular displays, which are the displays that can display 3D content without the need for glasses.
You know, it's funny.
Uh,
I was just gonna bring that up. Did you see the thing at Samsung that had, and it was like a really small deal. It was just like a one seat like gaming studio where you could get it had the dual cameras, and so it was basically like VR on a computer with
right.
like for VR gameplay, but without a headset, which seemed like sort of in that ballpark, but where things almost need to be heading. Yeah.
I didn't see that, but Sony was demoing something like that. It was a single
Maybe it was
user
even
setup.
Sony, not Samsung. I could be,
It,
I,
Yeah.
it
Well, no,
wasn't.
no,
fuzzy.
They were
yeah,
demoing that in 2020 at CES, and I met the
Right.
people behind the team behind that, and I don't know if that product ever took off, but it was pretty cool when I saw it in 2020, and so maybe there's an incremental improvement on it. I do have comments about what Sony was showing at the show. I really did like that.
Oh,
Um,
which part?
so they had a really cool virtual production system that for Unreal, where they had a camera on a dolly that they were showing right at the entrance to Center Hall, and then their racing simulators. I demoed the PSVR 2 with the Gran Turismo 7 racing simulator with the force feedback wheel, and I
Uh-huh.
thought that like high-end gaming is a really good use case for VR. I think it's I like out of I was telling this in a group chat I'm in. Out of the people I keep in touch with from high school, I'd say about half the guys are building some sort of racing simulator off a PS5 in their basement. And I see Mark shaking his head, yes. So I think a VR headset is a natural peripheral for that. If you've already invested like $1,000 into building this racing simulator, another $600 for a headset might make sense. But anyway, that was pretty neat. And it was a good demo, and the headset's actually more comfortable than I thought it would be. So that was the one thing that surprised me in the show. I also thought Kia's booth was phenomenal. They're planning to launch this full self-driving modular van in the US in 2027 and overseas in 2026. And it is the cutest thing I've ever seen. It's like out of a Nintendo game. Everything is this like these beautiful Art Deco pastel colors, and like you can use this as a work van during the week, and like an RV during the weekend. Just swap out a few parts, and transforms to a workspace. I thought it was like so beautifully designed. I would love to see these things on the road, and it just made me think like my kids are 7 and 9 years old, and by the time they start like driving and going for their road test, they will probably not be driving a regular automatic transmission car, nor will their friends. It'll be about as rare as, it was for people my age to learn how to drive stick. And that kind of hit me at this show, that it's really coming. It's not going to be just like the Teslas on the road that have beta full self-drive.
And like all these showpiece cars, they're like, I mean, like one after the other is almost like if Apple designed a car, and like I mean, just stand there and like watching the car on those turntables, just mystified. I'm like, I go out like, do we actually have any of this?
And catching bits and pieces of those presentations, I heard just like, within earshot, almost every presenter mention Unreal Engine in the car, like that we run Unreal, and this in Unreal Engine in Dash for better representation of the outside world. So,
Well,
more
I mean,
more and more of these cars are becoming
It's everywhere.
I,
Yeah.
and one of the fascinating like one-off comments I heard on one of those tours was that because the chips keep getting smaller, right? Like they have more room in the car for like everything else, right? And so whether it's a sound system or gaming engines, displays, like things like that, and I had no concept of that, right? Like that actually leading to just new design possibilities.
Amazon Amazon had a very interesting yet small booth where they were combining AI with fleet management simulation. And I learned that there's a new automotive embedded Linux distro that they're using. And it's really phenomenal to see, like, how the worlds of automotive and computing are combining at these shows,
Oh
and
yeah.
just the sheer level of projects that are both open source and getting major investment from companies like Amazon.
And Jamie, you had a couple of comments in the chat. I just wanted to see if there was anything you wanted to follow up on. So you've had some great experience related to all this.
Hey, sorry, I've been here and not as a HVAC guy in house. Um, yeah, so the one thing on the funny roller skates, I've actually been tracking that one product for a year since it's been out, because it's been one
Wow.
of those things that you look at and you're like, oh wait, is this like the next Segway, but this time it'll work.
Mhm.
And what's really fascinating on that level is the drivetrain. That's the AI. It's the learning of your gait, which is extremely complex in terms of all the touch points of your foot and how that's complicated in and of itself. Robotics, obvious example, but then for you as an individual, how that gait works, and then able to stay with you on that fly, that's amazing. That'll translate into continuous variable transmission for cars. That's just a scary, scary, scary product to stick AI in.
Mhm.
But it's there. The capability's already there. So wrong product, but that is definitely going to be hitting in a lot of different ways as we start to extend our skeleton, our presence, the tool sets that we use, and the minuscule differences of how we use our body. And to take that one step further, the definition of what a user experience of UX is in general, from conversational UX to robotic UX, that we're going to need new terms, but like that interface between physical XR screen conversational is expanding dramatically right now. So that's all very, very, very interesting to me. On the glass side, I do have a fenestration client, so windows for buildings. He's
Mhm.
over in the UK. So I brought up the CES stuff to him. And his first thought was, we've been doing this since 2003, and all the stuff that's like basically the exact same tech and seen in the same way, just way lower resolution, way lower lumens, uh, not as, realistic, but still basically the exact same thing. And how it's been sitting on the edge of conversation of so many people's minds in this space for
Mhm.
so long. And every once in a while it pops up huge, like Adidas activation in Grand Central a few years ago, things like that. and then just disappears again. So it's one of those kind of niche things that keeps pulling our imagination in, and then it doesn't scale. And we keep on trying to find the thing. I still think it's going to scale. It's just what is the thing that's going to do that with.
Love it. Yeah, I can't say I've ever heard anyone chime in and say they have a fenestration client. So
he corrects me so often with that. We're working on, building BMS, building management systems. He works on FMS. I've been building this brand of FIMS, which is information management system, and that as his brand has been what we've been working on, which is the IoT and the digital twinning and fenestration on that side.
Wild. So, well, thanks for that unexpected perspective, but always relevant. And then Mark, yeah, I want to get to you anyway because I know you were about to chime in. So please.
Yeah, sorry, I was a little late to the party. I had
good.
Audio issues. Yeah, it's funny. Jamie just mentioned that because that was the industry I was working in previously too, on the whole visualization end. So it's come back several times, but I wanted to make a few add-on comments on the Sony system because I think a lot of this sort of plays together what I see is happening in the overall ecosystem is like Sony's new LED panels and their virtual production management system, the way they all start playing together. I mean, they're still expensive, right? It's Sony, so it's still some of the most expensive gear on the market. But you can sort of see where all of a sudden the Alexa cameras are working together with the new super dense pitch LED panels, and all of a sudden you get more of a one hardware provider, one software provider to make all of this really difficult technology work. And I think you're going to see a lot of that equipment also come down in prices, where a lot of physical production equipment that is still extremely expensive today is going to be more democratized. And if you don't need to produce something for that maybe needs to run on national television, right, or in a Super Bowl spot that you're just creating for Instagram or TikTok, can potentially use different production methods because you're not looking at it on massive screens. And then on the AI side, I don't know if anyone ever looked at NVIDIA's own build of Unreal Engine lately, but they're doing some very, very interesting implementations of their own AI models when it comes to facial animation or the cleanup of facial animation and the way it can be driven today. So I think overall, for marketing, we're going to see lots of interesting things happening. A lot of it is still on the fringe side, mostly available to developer, or you have to be a prompt expert to make all of these things work easily. But I think someone else mentioned it earlier that over the next 1 to 2 years, you're going to see some real good actual functional tools hitting the market that kind of make sense of all this, what seems to be very, theoretical benefits of AI in many fields.
Love it. Thanks for that, Mark. This is a lot of fun. This is why I always look forward to these calls because people are coming from so many different angles. Who else has thoughts, even just like questions, folks who are following things from afar? Anything exciting? Anyone else from what you followed past week?
Well, I'm curious, what people think of Vision Pro, because, again, I think that the tease at CES really brought that more into focus, given the fact that we still haven't seen what Google may come back with, and Microsoft has moved in another direction, which has been quite profitable. but I'm just curious what people think, and particularly you, Mark, on the visualization side. I did talk to a lot of people about this, and of course, there are a million questions, everything from audio to uh, what the ecosystem will be like. I mean, I'm excited, the idea that you basically have, something that would take your iPhone 15 Pro Max and create, some great visions with this. But I don't know where this goes in, other than, a great B2B product. Vario has, dropped their price to something that's close to Vision Pro. And I don't know what the Sony gear is selling for. Michael, maybe you got a sense of that. But Mark, what do you think about where Vision Pro goes?
Um, I'm 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 still torn on that because we at Virtual House, my previous startup, we started out as a VR only company, and we built everything on top of Unreal Engine with the idea that it has to play in VR, so it has to play at 90 frames per second and all the other uh, uh, artistic limitations that come with developing something for virtual reality headsets. And then for our product back then, which was also in the interior design and architecture market, we figured out after doing some market research that someone that shows up in a showroom, to drop $100,000 on new kitchen cabinetry does not necessarily want to put on a VR headset in the middle of a showroom. So it's this mixed bag. I think for in the professional sort of B2B applications, you're going to see a lot of progress made because of the simplicity of Apple products in general. I mean, half the battle, even in the traditional, with a Vario headset or any of the other modern tracking tools, is the setup, and then after it's set up, the maintenance of that setup. And that's what Apple always makes super simple. But how far the VR development and expansion into VR goes, I'm I'm sort of 50-50 on that. What I think is going to hit big again are the types of AR glasses that Instagram attempted with the spectacles a while back. That Meta, I don't know if anyone has seen any of the demos or the videos of Meta's new AR, the sunglasses, right? And they have still very limited use. And by the way, if anyone has not seen the Lex Friedman's interview with Mark Zuckerberg that was actually done in Meta's new virtual human avatar technology, definitely a must watch. I'll find it and I can post it to it later. But I think that's where you're going to see a lot of use of that technology. I believe more in the AR field. We're looking into this right now. How can you potentially create a television commercial, for example, right? You start out with AI image generation, then you use that generated AI image on an image to video generator, right? Maybe with a little guidance from 3D, so you get a better really outcome. And then if you make all of this on top of Unreal Engine, and then you later can potentially put this in other mediums, like making a Fortnite island and UEFN, right, as a brand installation, or pulling out this AR experience, right, for these new Meta spectacles, where now you can potentially not see the product in a full VR room, but you might be able to pop this product down on the counter in front of you, right? Because you're wearing the spectacles. So that's kind of my take where I see all of that going. I read an article this morning too from Evan Spiegel, sort of a battle cry to the entire Snapchat community. And they definitely see where everything is going right now on the upswing for them again. And I think, short form video, TikTok and Instagram Reels are kind of showing where all of this is headed.
Interesting about the Meta Quest goggles. I know as a company, they use them for their meetings actually. And I kind of wonder what the transition is from using that in a more niche setting and then just getting that broader adoption.
Was that a question to me?
I mean, for anyone, just like open conversation.
So I have personally only had the set on one time so far, so I don't have any experience yet with the setup. We are actually doing some tests. A friend of mine, Alex Colomb, he runs a shop here in New York.
From Agile Lens, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I know Alex has a set, and I've known Alex for 15 years. We met back at the first XR show there ever was in San Jose many years ago, and we've kept in touch. And I know he has one, and we're thinking about teaming up on another project. And if that happens, then we're gonna have some direct tests coming out of using Unreal for like a virtual production scenario, but then also how would that potentially fit in with a workflow for the new headset.
One of the things that I think people are most interested in, at least people in the development community with the Apple Vision Pro, is the ability to mirror screens from the Mac, and also coming from VR development. I think one of the biggest challenges as a developer is the context switching when you're building something from VR to go from Unreal running on your machine, or whatever coding environment you're in, whatever development environment you're in, to putting on the headset, to taking it off, to putting it back on, taking it off to view your work. So for anyone that's creating content in 3D, I think as a developer tool, the headset might be interesting. That's the one reason I'm considering getting it at this price point, at this version, is I think it'll be an interesting developer kit, and just to get a year and a half head start on everyone else. But as a consumer product, the Apple Vision Pro, based on what Sony's doing and their price point, $600 for the headset as an add-on to a PS5, which is already in everyone's home. I don't see Apple competing on the high-end gaming market with the Vision Pro. Perhaps it's better, like if you have a Dolby Atmos in your living room and you want to watch a movie on the ceiling, maybe it's really cool for that. But it's I don't know. I'll probably pre-order it, and then, like David, if I don't like it, sell it on eBay or something like that. That's going to be my thing. Maybe I'll build a couple tutorials for it first.
Nice.
Alex, Mark, to speak to what to our mutual friend Alex, he has posted that Unreal Engine 5.4 will support in some capacity Vision Pro. That's his latest diggings into it, which I think is, for those of us who build on Unreal, that's going to be a nice moment. I'm very cautious about the Unreal and Apple integration, given the ongoing legal battles that are not seeming to get any better. But I guess that's a conversation for another time.
Hey, on the Unreal end, they keep getting better all the time. So there's a ray of hope.
So one more person I want to call on, because I saw that missed the first part of this, but I got to see them out there, is EB. And EB was conducting some great interviews out there, and EB, feel free to share some links as or after you chat, but just got to walk around Eureka Park with her and see a few things. Like, curious for one more perspective about what your take on the show was this year.
Yeah, this was my third or fourth time there, so perhaps not as fluent as some of the others there. But from a media marketer perspective, I would say that it felt like half the show were my people, media and marketing folks. It was like an old cable show from back in the day. It was really kind of remarkable. Off campus, there were several takeovers. Brand Innovators had folks like Lindy Yaccarino, famously now of X, and Mark Cuban speaking on panels. They had the CMO of Pfizer. Of course, MediaLink had their huge party. DPAA, the digital out of home space, had a whole takeover day there. And then there were folks like ComScore that had a lot of panel presence and talking about research. Matt Prohaska revealed some new research that they're doing on their effort called Rebranding News, trying to get marketers and advertisers to recognize that just blocking keywords in general was not effective. There were some really interesting booths. Like, for example, Netflix was there for the first time, but David and I bumped into Jeff Minsky, and I captured both of them on the podcast. I'll put it in a link. But Jeff pointed out that LG's presence, and this might have to do with that back camera that you were talking about with VR stuff, they didn't have their big viewing cave that they do year after year, but they had the most ginormous transparent TV wall. I don't get how they did it, but that was amazing. And then the haptic booths that allow you to have sensory interaction. But one of the things that Jeff and I talked about was the unbelievable presence of SK, which is South Korea television. And it felt like a 2-acre booth practically. And Jeff pointed out that there was even like a little train that went through the booth. But to their credit, a lot of the focus that they were talking about was about reducing their media emissions, and so being a little bit more conscientious about file size and sustainability. What else? What else am I missing, David?
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, Kate, I love your perspective too. Yeah, so someone I miss seeing out there, but
sorry, I was in transit this morning, so I'm just sitting down here. But yeah, I was sort of in and out in a little over 24 hours, so I don't have the richest sort of insights to share, but I was there on Wednesday when the Variety Summit was taking place, and having meetings with folks from New York that I don't see very often. I'm in LA, so it's sort of in and out for me. But I think my main takeaway of being there for 24 hours was just how bifurcated my experience was being in the entertainment space. And it was a little bit of a downer. Like, everyone was talking about AI, but it was a little pessimistic. It was a little bit like, watch out, the technology is coming to take your jobs. And then spending the next day on the floor with this like beautiful, futuristic, utopian feel to everything that was there. I just felt like it was really kind of, it spun my head a little bit, how different the tonality between one space and the other was. But yeah, I think that was the most interesting thing for me. But I did feel completely surrounded by my peeps too, Evie. Everywhere I went, I bumped into so many people randomly at Starbucks that I wasn't expecting to see.
and yeah, and I mean, Korea has an amazing presence, and then the other one to watch that'll also be fascinating to see on the AI component is France, right? Which has made more and more investment in the show. If you go to the Venetian where Eureka Park is, they have like a quarter of the floor space. It's just aisle after aisle of the French touch and their whole so all the emerging tech out of there. And here now Macron has made that a big priority for France to get very involved with the show. And also fascinating that they've got one of the most powerful LLMs out there now. Has anyone, and I'm even blanking on the name of it, has anyone had any experience with what France is doing on the LLM side? Because it seems like this is just going to be
Yeah, yeah.
bigger deal.
There's Business France has put a lot of money into that, and I mean, we've worked with a number of French companies in the AI and visualization space. In fact, Macron was at CES in 2015 when he was finance minister. Early days of Eureka Park. So it is. Again, part of this is also, a battle to say, we want to support languages other than English, but believe me, that's never gone away historically. But yeah, it is. It's fascinating how much has been invested in Xavier Niel, and some of the other big players in the French venture scene are really all over it. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Mistral's big
Yeah,
enough.
Mistral. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, where now like all of the it's gotten big enough that there's so much coverage now of like where it comes to play with misinformation or like just like kind of nefarious use cases for it because it's becoming so widely used. It's like how is it handling just so many of the negatives that some which Kate was referencing. So.
Well, you saw that Sam Altman is in Davos yesterday saying that OpenAI will look to shut down any use in political campaigning this year. I'd say good luck with that, but I'd like to hear more.
Well, I mean, Casey Newton for those who read Platformer, and Casey who just pulled out of Slack because of them not proactively taking down Nazi content or maybe even reactively. So a lot of controversy around there. That's a whole other story. But Casey sending his first newsletter from Ghost, he was describing how even with all the issues and Chris and rightful skepticism, his take is that like he's not used to seeing any platform so proactively say like if you ask it to do something that sounds like election tampering or anything like that, like it won't go there or it'll try as hard as it can not to go there. And that's at least a model for the right way to do it. So yeah.
He also did say that we're going to have to make some uncomfortable, in his words, choices as GPT-5 comes out. So I, looking forward to seeing how he and everybody else balance that.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Got a short announcement, if it's okay, not quite
Yes.
AI related, but do you remember when we all used to use Upstream for meeting?
I miss it still. Yeah.
So I'm working with the founder of Mingle, who's a good friend of mine, on the software's called Mingle, but it's basically an alternative that's very similar to Upstream, actually. And wanted just to like personally invite everyone, and I'll put this also in the Serial Markers Slack group as well, to an introduction call on the platform, how to use it. And I'll also be running a affiliate marketing program also for that after the introduction call. So that'll be Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern for the intro, 4 p.m. for the affiliate marketing side of that. If you're interested in trying a new technology, because I know you're all very forward thinking and love new tech.
Can you put your contact info in the chat, Miriam?
Yes. So here, put in the chat about the Mingle, and then I'll put my LinkedIn also, so connect.
Yeah, been hoping for an Upstream alternative, and I've definitely looked because there are a number of faces here who I've either met there or got to know way better because of it. So with all of Alex Tabb's foresight, he got so deep down the crypto rabbit hole. So
yeah, I can understand being in Miami. It was like everywhere. You couldn't walk down the street. You couldn't leave your front door without someone just like saying like NFTs, crypto, blockchain.
Yeah, well, just any other last comments, questions from the group as we hit the 5 minute mark?
I wanted to ask a question of everybody, especially at CES, but for this whole group, is AI companionship as a service. I've been getting poked week after week after week from different clients and advisors and just people in general of how this is advancing on an ethics side, on a product side, on a timeline side, about where capabilities are basically going to be for the next tranche of technology and where it's headed, and how different companies are trying to use it and how different customers are trying to bend it. We've seen the Chat GPT store basically having to try to shut down as many sexy lady AIs as possible, and to no avail. There's a lot of there's some companies that are coming at me about like, how do I turn this AI created picture into a 3D version of a person that I can build a relationship with, and especially on the virtual influencer side. And I'm just curious where people are seeing everything at right now, and if CES, because I didn't see anything really focus on this with CES in terms of any steps forward with it or context at all.
I think you're going to see the market flooded with this over the next year because the technology is becoming so simple. I don't know if anyone has tried HeyGen yet, but you pay them a few dollars a month, right? And they generate a perfect sort of talking head for you. The scanning technology, the face scanning technology is making a lot of headway too, where you can, scan a face and then transfer it. In our case, we're using Unreal Engine's MetaHuman technology, but they provide a path where you can now scan a face and then transfer it to a MetaHuman. So all of that is going to get, more uh, more more detailed and less canny valley, and even right now, if you get an animation out from a MetaHuman animation, you run this through an AI video generator one time and go make this realistic, right? Then it is so. Talking about political advertising and marketing, yeah, I think if they were all responsible, they would shut it off for that specific purpose. I think at the moment that's the only responsible thing to do because you can't control it otherwise.
From an
Anything
ethics
that people
perspective,
are seeing on the
from an ethics perspective, I put in the chat the podcast Bot Love from Radiotopia. It's really good, and it goes through different cases of people who have relationships with AIs. And on one front, it's sometimes a helpful tool to get you from a difficult situation out into a stable sort of life. And then on other situations, it ruined people's ability to have actual human relationships. And it covers those in sort of really frank detail. So I would definitely recommend everyone check that out because it does give a perspective. I personally think there's no way of avoiding it. Like as in everything AI, because it is possible, it will happen. Someone will do it. And so I think from my perspective, it's really about how do we kind of educate and bring it out of the shadows and talk about it so that, you don't run into the same problems that we're having with social media and teenagers, and it's sort of out in the open.
Yeah, I was also wondering if, and I didn't mean to steer too much towards the sex side, because yes, of course, it's as goes porn, so goes the internet. But on the manipulation side, on the salesperson side, on the creating completely real, as Mark, you were talking about with getting to a point where we're indistinguishable from a completely fake person side. If there's anything else on that, it's where I see, like, once we take porn out of the picture, what's the main industry? And I'm just wondering if there's any more direction on that.
Yeah, well, and we are basically at
That's
the
one.
buzzer here. So, but next week we will be talking about AI ethics with Paul Cheney, who writes AI marketing ethics. So please continue for that. Some of you put in LinkedIn's, most of you have been here before. Chris Pfaff, thank you so much for coming and sharing your perspective. Kate, EB, Michael, all great to have folks who are at the show, and everyone else who contributed. So thank you. We'll see you next week. Talk more in the community. Yeah, thanks everyone. This flew by. So love it.